welcome again to Consistency Queen. My name is Elsa Morgan. I'm a wife, I'm a mum, and I also have a global coaching business helping women over 40 build businesses online with a proven system. I'm coming to you today to share with you a bit of my story because I really want you to understand that although it does take a little bit of work, you can totally recreate your life starting from today. And I know you're probably wondering back home, how could that be possible? But I can tell you that it is probable. And the reason why I say that is because at any stage, any decision you make and you start taking action towards it is going to lead you to somewhere. And when you listen to parts of my story, you're going to understand that at any stage, I could have stayed where I was. I could have not decided. I could have decided not to take action. I could have given in to my programming, to my thoughts, to my limiting beliefs, to my environment. But I chose not to because there are so many people that I want to help, so many people I want to impact. And I want to share my story with you because I need you to understand that you can totally change your life. But more importantly, is that I really want people to understand my vision because I'm serious when I say that I will impact over 100,000 women. I'm serious when I say that I have this desire to contribute $25,000 checks to charity every single month. And I have this desire to help as many children who are in poverty right now to have access to education. You see, the reason why that last one is so important to me, it was because I was born into poverty. My family was not rich, not even middle class. My family was poor. I had 2 dining chairs as my bed for the first 18 months of my life. And we literally had 1 room as our bedroom. So I had my 2 dining chairs in one corner and I was tucked away there, and pushed up against the chairs was my parents' bed, and on the other side was my brother's bed. And so whilst we were poor, my parents never really lacked for anything, given the circumstances. My father went to work and he had a stable job. And then one day he saw a sign on the light post. He used to go to work with his best friend. And he saw this sign that they were looking for people to migrate to Australia and Canada. And it was from them that he and his best friend used to daydream about the possibility of what that could look like for them. He used to wonder, what that could be like. And then his curiosity really got to him. And he said, you know what? I really want to give this a go. I want to see if this is possible. If these dreams are just what they are, or is this really where I'm meant to go? And of course, when he told his family, when he told my mum, they all thought he was crazy. They all thought he had lost his marbles. But he was so determined. He believed in it so much that this was what he was meant to do. So that way his children had a different life, the possibility of something different. And he went through that process. He put in the application, not knowing whether they would be accepted, but he took that risk. He made that decision. And so for those of you who followed me for some time, and those of you who know me well, now you know where I get that trait of making a decision and taking a chance on yourself. Both of my parents inhibited that, by the way. And so when they were accepted, we migrated to Australia with my father having $50 in his pocket, and we had 1 suitcase. And we arrived here. Literally the very next day, my father got a job across the road at a factory. And that is how we began our life in Australia. Now, mind you, when we arrived here back then, I was just over 18 months old. And so for me, I would have known any different. But my brother had to learn the language. My brother had to make new friends and go to a school with, speaking a different language than what was there. And so for us, it could have been a situation where we could have stayed where we were in that mindset. But my father and my mother taught us about working and being diligent with managing your money, managing a household. And even though I never really lacked for anything, I knew at some point I didn't want to work as long and as hard as they did, because they worked so hard. And I never really got to spend that much time with my parents until the weekend, because they were both so tired when they got home. And, I'm forever, ever grateful that they worked as hard as they did, because I was able to go to school. I had clothes, I had food on the table, I had a roof over my head, and I had my own bed in my own room. And so when I decided that, I was going to be diligent in school and study, I got myself into university, the first member in my family to go to university. And it was while I was at uni and I entered my third year that I did a sandwich year. I did 12 months at a company. And it was during that time that I realized that maybe what I was studying wasn't quite in alignment with what I really want to do, because I was exposed to sales. And I was studying at the time marketing and economics. And for me, whilst that was okay, it wasn't really exciting for me. But when I saw the sales reps at the company and they had their own cars, and they were going and visiting clients, and they were, going to events, that interested me. And so I entered my final year, my fourth and final year at university, having completed my sandwich year. And it wasn't until I was into my sixth subject and I went, you know what? I really want to do sales. Like I'm okay with this, but this isn't really what I want to do. So I took the risk and dropped out of uni and went into sales. And from there, I developed a very successful sales career. And during that 20-year period, I sold well and truly in excess of over $100 million worth of contracts in sales. I was very regularly, earning awards, earning trips. And I'm not saying this to you because, I'm trying to brag, but what I am saying is that when I decided to leave that career, it wasn't an easy decision, in the sense like I was leaving an established career that I had built up over time. And towards the very end of my career, I was a national product manager for a global logistics company looking after Australia and New Zealand. I had P&L responsibility. And so making the decision not long after that I was going to exit my corporate career in my 40s was a huge decision, because I decided to build from the ground up again. But I'll take you back to my mid-30s, because it was during that time that I didn't make wise decisions. Financially, I didn't have a good money mindset. I didn't know it then, but I do now. And what I valued then were things like Gucci bags, which, by the way, I do still love. But that was my driving force, being seen with designer stuff and, traveling business class and all of those things, which are all nice to have. But, in the scheme of things, I really couldn't afford it, because, I have a philosophy that if you can't pay for it twice, you shouldn't be paying it the first time. And I came to a situation where my cards were absolutely maxed out and I had more than two. I also fell victim to a Ponzi scheme, a real one, a property one. And what happened was, I just trusted the wrong people. And the unfortunate thing was that by the time I had found out, I was well and truly in a world of pain. I was head to the ceiling, full of debt. My ex-husband had left me for somebody else not long after we got married, and defaulted on his loans that we had together. And I had agencies chasing me, wanting money that technically he owed, but because he defaulted on them, they came after me too. So I had all this debt, I had all these bills, all on my own. And then I realized that what I thought that I'd invested in was a property investment, was in fact a property Ponzi scheme. And so you can imagine the world of pain that I was in my mid-30s. I realized then that I had made some very foolish choices, that potentially I was not as smart as what I thought I was. And in fact, I probably thought that I was smarter than what I really was. And that I really didn't have a good relationship with money. And I also was wondering why this was all happening to me. In hindsight, it was the best decision that ever happened. The best thing, that ever happened was that moment. Because if it wasn't for that moment, I wouldn't have been able to do a ton of reflection and start to understand why these things happened. When I realized that I was the one that made many of those choices, I started to take responsibility. And from doing that, I started making some changes in the kind of people that I surrounded myself with, but also really trying to understand who I was. Now, out of that, I had to decide about how I was going to restart my life on my own, full of debt. And it was in that moment that I made the difficult decision to file for bankruptcy. It was not easy. In fact, telling my parents, sharing that with my parents, was one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do, because I really felt like I had let them down. They fought so hard for me to migrate here, to give us a good education. And here I was, their daughter who had gone to university, filing for bankruptcy. I really felt like a failure. But one thing that my father said that I really took to heart was, he said, if you're going to make this decision, make sure you pick up the lesson. And it was the most profound piece of advice that he could have ever given me, because I remembered that, especially in moments of sadness when I was on my own and I really didn't have anybody that I could really talk to about this. You see, I hid that very, very well. No one really knew except for my parents, my family, and maybe a couple of friends, maximum. I was so ashamed. And I truly believe that if my friends knew the truth about me being bankrupt, that they would hate me, that they would totally dislike me and never trust me. And yet I knew deep down inside I was a good person. And I was just someone that made poor choices. I was someone that was foolish and really didn't give much thought to some of the decisions that I made. And so that was already step one of the new me coming out. I then decided to start running. And, running was like therapy for me. And whilst I didn't plan to, I ended up running a bunch of half marathons and marathons. In fact, up until now, I have run 12 marathons and 23 half marathons. Running pretty much kept me in check and saved my life, in the sense that there were times where I went through depression, but that helped me to get back up. And it was during the time where I started running, I was running marathons, that I met my now husband, Olaf. And there were so many things that we had in common, but one of the things that we really did have in common was contribution. We really want to do some good work whilst we're here. And we had these ideas about what that could look like. And we thought, you know what, let's invest in a ton of property. And then out of that, we can start, making donations, maybe set up a foundation, etc. But little did I know, in 2015, not long after our first child, our son, was born, I found myself in a situation where I couldn't lose the last lot of my baby weight. I tried everything. And mind you, I was a running coach. I had run marathons, and prior to me falling pregnant, I was as fit as anything, toned, fit. Like, I was really surprised that I couldn't lose the weight. But I saw a good friend of mine who I'd known for over 20 years talk about a product, and she was talking about it all the time. And so when I saw her that day online, sharing this product, I rolled my eyes. I go, there she goes again. But I decided in that moment that I was going to give it a go because, quite frankly, I'd tried everything, but fully expecting it was not going to work for me. And so I picked up the phone and rang her and I said, listen, I'm going to give this thing a go. And I know it comes with a guarantee. So I'm pretty much going to expect that I'm going to get my money back. And she laughed at me. She said, you know what? That's totally cool. That's totally okay. If that happens, no problem. So that night, Olive and I put in the order. He decided to keep me accountable and he did it with me as well. What we didn't know back then is that decision totally changed our life forever. And this is what I want to share with you, is that at any stage, you could be making decisions that you have no idea would change your life. Filing for bankruptcy changed my life. It taught me about, learning how to manage money, living paycheck to paycheck, and being accountable for myself. Running really reinstilled in me discipline and focus and being committed and not quitting when it got so hard. And yet, when I made that decision to place that order for that product, I didn't know it then, but it would totally shift the trajectory of our life. And so out of that, I learned that, when you really back yourself, when you take a chance on yourself and you're not quitting on your circumstances, because you know what, I could have stayed where I was, accepting that I was 5 kilos heavier than what I should be and just not opted in. But I really wanted to get back to my normal weight. And I tried everything. So when I took that one last chance, you wouldn't believe it, but the damn thing worked. I lost all the weight, and so did I. I was like, I could not believe it. But then people started asking us, how did I do it? And that is when I discovered that you could make money online simply by sharing this product. I realized that this had an opportunity, an income opportunity attached to it. And that is how I discovered the whole online space, how to make money online. I had no idea that existed prior to that. And so whilst I entered the world of network marketing in 2015, I had no idea how to do it. I thought I could nuke it because I'd had a successful sales career. I didn't know where it could possibly take us. But not long after we started, we started earning like $500 a month. Now, $500 a month for us back then gave us breathing space because, I had a complicated birth and we had bills. So it allowed us a little bit of breathing space with everything that we had to pay. And then we were earning 4-figure amounts. And I said to Olive, you know what? I can totally see myself doing this and retiring myself out and spending time with Alfie, which I wanted to so badly spend time with our son. And so I made the commitment that I was going to build the business to get myself out. Now, that didn't happen for another 3 years. And during that time, I failed forward so many times. I made so many mistakes. In fact, I was highly uncoachable, somewhat arrogant about the fact that I had a successful sales career. And even though whilst I was good at that, I came in with that energy that I was going to nuke it. And you know what? I fell flat on my face. I didn't know anything. I didn't follow the systems that were given to me. I didn't follow my mentors and coaching advice. I just did it my way. And because I did it my way, I didn't get the results that I wanted. I was trying to do it my way, try and bend my way around, going, I've had a successful sales career. I can totally do this. Not understanding duplication, not understanding that by following an established blueprint that was proven, you fast track yourself. I learned that a little bit later on. But I did realize that at the end of 2017, when I had a very life-changing conversation with a good friend, Ben. And out of that conversation, I realized that I was the problem. That whilst I had been doing so much work and working the business, I wasn't doing the very thing that I should have been doing, and that is listening to my mentor, because he'd already achieved the things that I wanted to achieve. So it only seems natural that you would listen to somebody who achieved the things that you want to achieve. And so at the end of 2017, I decided to be coachable. I decided to do everything that my mentor said to do. That decision, again, because I backed myself and I said I was going to do the work, and I did do the work, shifted everything for me. From that day, I learned about consistency. I learned about what happens when you take action day by day, every single day, keeping your word, and how momentum kicks in at some point if you just continue doing the work with the same energy, the same focus, and the same dedication. That was the first time that I truly understood what that meant. And it was from 2018 and onwards that I started to become super disciplined and following my mentor's advice. I did the work exactly as he said, and I started to experience success, building big teams, speaking on stages, earning trips, earning car bonuses. And I realized that I had gone in my way the first 3 years of my entrepreneurial journey. And so I made a decision that I was going to start telling everybody to not do that, that the fastest way for you to learn in the entrepreneurial space is by investing in yourself, by learning from people who have gone before you. That's when I truly understood that. And ever since then, that's all I've done. So fast forward to the end of 2019, I found myself again in a bit of a pickle. You see, what happened is at that time we were living in a different place, northern Australia, in an investment property of ours. We found ourselves in a situation where, again, our cards were maxed out, but this wasn't necessarily because of poor choices. I still think it was just circumstances that just didn't happen for us. As much as we could, we just couldn't make it happen. And I found myself again working and working and working, and I didn't have anything to show for. What happened then is that my husband fell sick and he needed some help and treatment. And you know, we literally decided to come back home and spend time with family and have support from family to help him in his recovery. But just prior to that, what happened was something that totally shifted me forever. Because up until that point, I had been working really hard. I started to understand personal development. I started to understand what it means to take massive action and showing up every day and, doing the work, etc. And even though my results were not exactly where I wanted them to be, I was so much further ahead than I'd ever been. And so I was proud of myself for that. And I had the most incredible team, the incredible leaders. I'd established friendships with people that I still hold very dear to my heart, even today. But what happened is I had a leader say that if I didn't get myself to Las Vegas, an event in Las Vegas, then I probably wasn't taking my business serious. And it was the best thing that she could have said to me, because the decision to go to Las Vegas changed my life forever. You see, I didn't have the money, like in the bank or on my cards. I didn't have it, but I had my car. And I made the decision to sell my car. And it broke my heart because I loved my BMW so much. But I remember looking at my husband in the eye and saying, you know what, I will never, ever put our family in this situation ever again. Never again will my family be in this position. As long as I am living and breathing, we will be in vastly different circumstances, and I will not stop till we get there. And I meant every word that I said, because that Christmas, before I sold my car, I had $134 to spend on the kids for Christmas. And I felt like such a failure as a mum that I couldn't spoil them the way that I wanted to. And I know that they don't need so many toys, but you see, I had both of my children late in life. And so I wanted to make up what I felt like was lost time with them. I went to Las Vegas, and there were some things that shifted within me at the time. And when I came back to Australia, I caught up with Olaf and I just said, you know what? I'm so going to go all in this year, 2020. And obviously the world changed not long after. We were home with my parents, and I made the decision to opt in to a challenge called Rise Up Challenge, which was a 21-day personal development event filled with top leaders, and it was hosted by Pete Vargas. That challenge was so amazing. And I truly do believe that when you make the decision that you're going to go all in on your life, opportunities like that present for you to step into. And you don't know why you're stepping into, you don't know what's going to come out of it, but you do when you grab it by both hands. Again, I backed myself, and out of backing myself, life changed. That 21-day challenge taught me so much about playing big, about playing full out, about, being committed to your dreams, about what it meant to actually create a legacy. And that's when I started having the belief that there was a possibility that could be me too. And so I started to do a 30-day Facebook Live, and people started noticing. More people, even though I'd had success, that was really what set me up for a launch pad, a leap pad into further success later on. In September 2020, I was at an event virtually, and they had one of the speakers do like a remote hypnotherapy type session. And I actually took part in it. I'd never done that before. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. So, he told us to close his eyes and to close our eyes and, follow his instructions, blah, blah, blah. But that was also pivotal for me. You see, I was waking up at 1 a.m. in the morning and watching this event until midday Australian time because it was being hosted in America. And so because I took a chance on myself again and played full out in this event, stuff happened. Because in that session, I witnessed something within myself that I didn't realize that could be affecting the way that I was, the way that I thought, the way that I reacted, the way that I responded. I didn't realize up until that moment that maybe, just maybe, some of my programming had come from my childhood. That this was a possibility for me to maybe make some changes. And so I started to make inquiries, and out of that, I locked arms with a lady in Sydney who was a hypnotherapist, especially for high-performing individuals, athletes and high-performing professionals. And she gave me the opportunity to work with her for 30 days. That was the beginning of the old me saying goodbye to the old me, and me saying hello to the new me. Not long after that, I tapped in some further mind and programming work and opted into another program. And it was almost like, one thing after the other. And I didn't know how one would lead into the other, but the more that I did that, the more that I was shifting, the more that I was changing, the more that I was realizing that, you know what? I could totally change my life if I just changed myself. I had a friend of mine saying, you know what? You would be so good at a coach. And I never really believed it until I started understanding what she saw. Because with my programming and the filter that I operated in back then, I didn't have much self-worth. I mean, I showed up powerfully online, but behind, I didn't really value myself that much. But the more that I started to do work, the more I realized that I had been given gifts by God to be able to go and serve and help so many people, especially women, who had found themselves in situations where they wanted to change their life as well. And so the more that I started to understand that, the more that I worked on myself. I decided to get my coaching certification. And I started with a life coaching certification and an NLP certification. And I saw the possibility of how I could help women. I saw the possibility about how I could help them move out of their programming, move out of the way that they just held themselves back through limiting beliefs. And I entered the following year in 2021 with a bang. I was in a high-performing container with Grant Cardone, and that totally changed my life, because his program was how to build $1 million, how to generate $1 million in 90 days. And of course, I hadn't done anything near that, but I was super curious about what it actually took. And I learned so much from him about taking action and operating with a state of urgency. And he also speaks to things which he does even today about backing yourself, about taking a chance, and about not listening to anyone else but you. And so I decided I was going to get another coaching certification and launch my business. I opened up my company. I had to register that. And that was the beginning of what has totally transformed my entire life, launching and scaling my multiple six-figure coaching business. I have clients all around the world. And since May 2021, we've been able to impact thousands of women through my systems to help them move from where they are, to help them to understand why they haven't achieved the things that they've achieved, to help them to believe and start believing in the possibility for them. And it's been such an enjoyment seeing them win, seeing them evolve, see that sparkle in their eye, and realizing that, hey, those thoughts, those visions that they saw in their mind, they weren't just going to stay there as a dream. They were actually likely to become a reality if they just kept going and they did the work. And so by me launching my coaching business and scaling to six figures very, very quickly, I realized that I needed to do more work in myself. And you see, I truly believe that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And my greatest teacher appeared then, Shamina Taylor. Forever grateful that she appeared, because she taught me all about breaking generational curses, healing from my inner child wounds, understanding my limiting beliefs. And she taught me techniques that made me realize that all along I had the power, that the problem was me, that I was the one that was causing situations. And whilst it's never nice when you make that realization that you're the problem, but it was so freeing as well, because then I could make the decision to either stay where I was and not do the work, or do the work and be free from anger, from frustration, from anxiety. I could be free from all of that. So I decided to lock arms with her and do the work. And out of that, not only has my business doubled year on year, but I've gone on to achieve my first six-figure month in sales. I've been able to achieve over $1 million in sales in 2 years in my own business by myself. I've never, ever had a coaching business, and I had to launch that from scratch. And so you need to understand that when you back yourself and you truly make a decision to back yourself, it's incredible what presents in the form of coaches, mentors, resources, people, information, knowledge. It all becomes available to you and for you because you are open to receive. But the key thing that I have learned throughout this entire journey of mine to this day is that you have the power to change your life, that at any stage you can make the decision to move differently. Everything is a choice. You can either stay where you are, or you can take that step forward and decide that you will no longer stay where you are. Now, I'm not saying that it is easy, far from it. Like, all the work that I've done, especially in the last 2 years, has been extremely challenging. It is really difficult to look at yourself in the face and go, you know what, you've got to change the way you think. You've got to move differently. There are people depending on you, wanting you to step forward, whether you feel up to it or not, whether you are confident enough or not, because they need you to step forward. They're looking for inspiration. And even though you don't believe in yourself at all, they believe in you. They see something in you. And so my mission is largely driven by women over 40, by those women who never have believed that these things were possible for them, that the things that they see in their mind, the possibility, the visions, that, you know, some of them are just sitting there wondering what that could be like. And if I hadn't have stepped forward, many of them would never have known otherwise. Like, they would still be where they were before locking arms with me. And so when I look back on my journey, especially from 2009, when I filed for bankruptcy, I could connect the dots so clearly and see how every single situation lended into the next one. How if I hadn't have made those decisions, who knows where I would be today. But the key thing is, in all of this, is that, one, I was prepared to back myself. Even though I truly didn't believe in myself, I still believed that I had to make a decision. And out of that, I know that not making a decision is actually making a decision to stay where you are. But every single time, I chose growth. I chose the scariest route. And because I did that, I learned so much about myself. I learned the fact that I'm so much more stronger than what I give myself credit for, that no matter how bad and challenging the circumstances are, that I will be getting back up over and over and over again, that tomorrow is another day, that tomorrow is another opportunity to go again, but with experience. And you see, that is available for you too, that whilst you may be sitting here listening to me wondering if that's available to you, I'm telling you that it is. I'm telling you that right now you're meant to be listening to this message, that you are here listening to me because you've been wondering as well the possibilities for you. And I'm here to tell you that it is time. It is time for you to move. It is time for you to get up off your chair and take that step. It is time for you to make the decision that you will no longer stay where you are. And it is only when you truly back yourself, especially in circumstances where it seems crazy to back yourself, that is when the magic happens the most. And the most important thing that you need to understand, that from that day forward, you don't have to know exactly how you're going to get there to your destination, the one that you're working towards. You just have to believe that it's going to happen. You just have to have this unwavering faith and belief in yourself, that every single step that you take, that every single challenge that you overcome, and that every single lesson that you take on is helping you to move forward towards it. That is exactly what's happened to me. And that's why I preach this so much. Not because I want to sound like a know-it-all, because, hey, I was born poor, and yet I've been able to build, launch and scale a multiple six-figure coaching business that scale into 7 figures by myself with global clients. I honestly can tell you that I don't have these, extra arms or extra legs or extra brain. Far from it. I'm short, I'm loud, I'm an OBS coach. But there's one thing that I've learned about myself, which is why I built and created the Consistency Queen. That if I didn't show up every single day, I know I wouldn't be here. If I didn't show up every day, even when I didn't feel like, I would definitely not be here. And if I didn't show up every day for myself, I'd be lying not only to myself, but to my husband and our children and everyone else who was waiting for me to fail could be nodding their head and go, see? So the Consistency Queen, and the reason why I created it, is more than just me creating a podcast to share my thoughts, strategies, and knowledge for you to move in your life and your business. It's a culmination of my journey. It is what's helped me to become who I am today, and it's a representation of what I've built, because the Queenie Effect today is heading towards being $1 million per year company. That hasn't happened without hard work. That hasn't happened with having to make some changes, lots of changes within myself, around myself, and for myself. That hasn't happened with some realization that maybe I needed to make some permanent changes in the way that I showed up and the way that I made decisions. But you see, this is available for you. And my company today not only serves women through my coaching programs where I facilitate group coaching and one-on-one, but we advocate for women and their messages through our book collaboration. And we also create events to empower women so they can attend and learn from some of the best speakers on this planet. And we want to give women access to things that they never thought was possible for them. So I hope that this has allowed you to just even believe that little bit more, that maybe you're here because you've been asking, and that maybe I'm here to deliver to you the possibility of what could be if you just made the decision today. Now, if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me on my website, elsamorgan.com. I personally answer all my messages, so feel free to send me a message. And I look forward to inspiring you, impacting you, and serving you on the next episode. And I just want to say thank you so very much for being a part of this episode. It's an important one for me because I'm openly sharing with you my journey of what I've gone through, what I've had to change, and what's made me today. Thanks again.
The Consistency Queen, brought to you by the Queenie Effect and the Tech Company. For coaching options, please visit elsamorgan.com.